Greetings, Maris Grove. Welcome to Through the Lens. I'm your host, Linda Dean, and we have a really different subject today, and we have a young guest. That's kind of nice for a change. Welcome, Sean Bianchini, and he's going to talk to us about the sport of curling. I wonder how many of you know anything about the sport of curling. That was one that I've learned a small amount from a college friend who still curls and is on a team up near Boston. So I know how enthusiastic she is, and now we have an opportunity to learn about curling here at Maris Grove and curling at the ice rink in Aston, which is nearby. So welcome, Sean.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And we were discussing a little bit before we went on the air. I learned that you're from Canada, so
yes.
That makes sense for somebody that's involved with ice
Exactly.
and winter sports. But if you could tell us a little bit about where you're from and how you happen to end up here.
Sure. Thank you, first off, for having us. It's a really exciting event that we're having here at the rink. I came from Canada. Down here I played hockey for about 20 years, and I got recruited to play at Newman University just down the road from here. So I went there and got a scholarship to play NCAA. So I did my 4 years there in sport management. I graduated this past May, and I had an internship at Iceworks. And that went very well, and they asked me to come back there and sort of created a job for me. And then we found out that they were getting the 2012 USA Curling Nationals, and they really needed someone who had a little bit of knowledge about the sport.
That timing was perfect, wasn't it?
Exactly. So I jumped on board, and I came back in August from British Columbia, and I've been working on the Nationals ever since.
Oh, sounds exciting.
Yep.
And it's exciting to have a national tournament like that in a sport right here close by.
Yeah,
because that's very close to it's Iceworks, and the rink is where?
It's in Aston. So it's just off of Pennell Road, right near I-95 on Dutton Mills Road is where it's located. So it's not far. It's about 15 minutes from here. It's very close. It's a very big facility. We have 4 rinks there. We have about 4 million visitors that come through there every year through hockey tournaments, figure skating, events like this, concerts, you name it, we host it there, and it's a very, very busy facility.
Sounds wonderful. Well, let's get to curling. So even the name is kind of strange. I mean, we're not curling here, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Would you tell us a little bit about how the sport is played?
The sport of curling, it's a winter sport. It's on ice. It involves throwing a rock towards a target. So it's similar to shuffleboard, and that teams are standing at one end, and you're throwing towards, a target at the other end. It originated in Scotland back in the medieval days, that they say.
I didn't realize it was that old.
It's a very, very old sport. It came to Canada in probably the 1800s with the Scottish settlements. So they brought that over. And it's just a very, very old sport with a lot of tradition, a lot of following around the world in different places. Like I mentioned before, we started in Norway and Sweden and those type of places over there, and then Canada. That's probably the biggest areas of curling around the world.
And you said they throw the rock.
Yep.
And then, as I understand it, the team. How many people on a team?
There's 4 people per team. There's a first, a second, a third, and then the skip. The skip is sort of the captain of the team, the leader of the team, the one who kind of calls all the shots. They get to throw last. Every player on the team throws 2 rocks.
Oh, okay.
So there's 8 rocks total per team, per end. Okay, so there's 10 ends in a game. In a full game, there's 10 ends. Okay, so it's just sort of similar to, I guess, I don't know what to compare it to, but if you look at the board, a scoreboard, it'll have all 10 ends. and each team will get 8 rocks per end. And then closest to the target gets a point. So if you have 2 rocks closest to the target, you get 2 points. Similar to like horseshoes or shuffleboard, whatever you want to, you name it. It's very similar to that. Just the strategy and the actual gameplay is different.
I wonder if it's a little bit like bocce too. I know they play bocce.
Bocce,
here.
yeah. I mean, when you throw the ball and you got to throw it closest to the ball, right? Gets points. So it's similar to that as well.
It is similar to that.
Yeah.
However, it isn't just throwing it, because you have people who sweep the ice to aim it. Is that how that works?
Yeah. So the person throwing the rock, they slide out of what is called the hack, which is like where they start. They slide the rock towards the target. They let go of the rock, and they'll spin the rock either way they want it to curl. That's where the term curling comes from, because the rock actually moves on the ice, from left to right. Now the sweepers, they go with the rock all the way down the ice, so they'll slide down the ice with it. And what they're doing, they're sweeping ahead of the ice, and they're actually melting just a little bit of the ice right ahead of the rock by sweeping. And that's causing less friction for the rock to go faster, or for it to curl. They don't want it to, they want it to go straighter. Okay, so if the rock's out too far to the right and they need it to come back, they're going to sweep a little bit to make it go straighter. So that's basically what the sweepers do, all the way down to the other end. And the skip, who I said was the leader, is standing at the other end. They're holding a broom for the other person who's throwing the rock to aim at. That's what they're aiming for.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Now, the sweepers are the other 3?
There's 2 sweepers, one person throwing, and then the person at the other end, which the person is throwing it to, is aiming for.
And they take turns with throwing?
Yeah, each person gets 2 rocks.
I wonder how my friend who's my age throws a rock. It's that heavy.
You don't actually have to lift it when you throw the rock. You can just, it just slides right on the ice. Obviously, depending how hard you want to throw it, there's different weights and stuff that people want to throw at. So sometimes you'll have to lift the rock, but most of the time you're just sliding it along the ice. So it's really not, too much of an effort.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. And you mentioned that it originated in Scotland, and I think in our conversation before, I said, what were they sweeping the snow out of? You said it started on the lakes and so forth, and that they maybe what inspired the game was sweeping snow out of the way? Or?
Yeah, outdoors on the frozen ponds in Scotland. And even when it came to Canada, there was outdoors at first. They didn't have the indoor curling clubs with the perfect ice that they have now. It was outdoors on the lakes and the ponds, and that's how they did it. And they used to use old witch brooms, like you sweep your kitchen with to, to clean the ice in front of the rocks. That's what they used to use. But obviously the game's developed since then, and there's a little bit more technology involved now. But one of the most interesting things is the rocks that they've used has never changed throughout all the years of the sport. Every single rock that is made for curling in all the tournaments, all the Olympics, everything comes from an island off of the coast of Scotland. It's granite, so they get all the rock from there.
So do they then shape it and
they shape it from there? So every single rock is built from this island off of Scotland. They take the rock from there and they manufacture it into what you see on the ice. They're all they'll range in weight, but they try and get them between 38 and 44 pounds each.
So we have rocks and we have brooms. What other equipment is involved?
What other equipment? Rocks, brooms, the shoes that they wear are special shoes. One shoe they'll have on has some grip on it, like a rubber Teflon type grip. Not on skates, just on normal shoes. Even some people they'll put on a slider, which is just like PVC pipe almost, made out of that type of plastic. So they stick onto the bottom of their shoe. So one shoe slides on the ice and the other one grips, so they can slide up and down and walk basically faster on the ice. Or when they throw the rock, they're sliding on the one foot that has a PVC pipe, so it slides for them. So they're actually sliding on the ice with the rock.
So it does sound that it really takes a lot of skill that you have to learn.
Yep. Some of the other things that they use, they'll use timers. That's for part of the strategy, to time how long the rock is taking to get from one end to the other, so they know how hard to throw it. In the olden days, this is something funny, the brooms, they actually screwed apart in the middle, the brooms, they screw apart, and they used to fill them with hot rum is basically what it is. So during the games, they would
unscrew.
It'd be warm for their hands, and then in between ends, they would take a little shot and then be a little hot. Yeah, exactly.
Efficient.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you curl? Now you said you're a hockey player, basically.
Yeah.
But
I'm a hockey player. My parents grew up curling. That's how they met at the curling rink back home. But in Canada, it's always on TV. So I always, when I go home for Christmas or whatnot, and I'm always watching it with them. Or in the Olympics, I always like to watch it. You know, since they were always into it, they kind of got me into the sport. I actually have never tried it. I really would like to. So that's going to be something exciting for me when the championships come to Iceworks. Is a chance to just even throw one rock to get out there and see what it actually is like.
Yeah. Now, the organization of people in the sport is clubs?
Yeah, it's mostly made up of curling clubs. There is an organizing committee, like USA Curling, sort of oversees all the clubs. And then you're going to see curling clubs from throughout the country. Most of them are originated Minnesota, Wisconsin, North Dakota. That's where a lot of the big curling clubs are, where most of the people are. Sort of that Midwest and then north of there in Canada is really the big hub of curling. But there is a lot of curling clubs up and down the East Coast. Philadelphia has their own curling club. So there is, that's kind of how it's organized. And then I guess the curling clubs, they all compete towards one another. People will travel from one curling club to another.
So the national tournament that's going to be taking place here is between teams coming from different clubs and different places?
Teams they have like sort of their home base, which is their curling club. That's what they'll curl out of. But they'll travel around all over to different tournaments, and Bonspiels is sort of the name. It's a new word. That's what they call tournaments in curling, Bonspiels. But they'll travel around to those, and they'll be for money, and they'll pay their own way, and they'll compete. And then how they're getting picked for the national championships is there's going to be 10 men's teams and 10 women's teams. And sort of it's just at the time coming up right about now is where they are in the rankings, in the money list, and in certain tournament lists. And that's how they get picked for the national championships.
So they made, it's not all set yet, is it?
No, we should know by the end of this week our first men's teams that have qualified for the tournament, but not until probably early January where we know every single team that's qualified.
And what are the ages of players?
You can get, there's a lot of good junior curling programs around now too, so you'll look at kids, teenagers trying to get out there and start curling at a younger age. But really the sport it's an old sport, so you'll see a lot of senior citizens. They play. They've played all their life, so that's it. But really, the age range is so broad. It's everyone basically, and teams you'll see anywhere.